For example, if she's like, fine, you want it hard, and like the crazy mouth shit, psycho eyes, and her eyes roll in the back of her head, you're like, holy shit, that's too much, right? Same ideas in training. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization. Today's video topic is a little bit of an intellectual journey to figuring out why we should be trying to train harder just about every week during a normal progression in a mesocycle. There are some folks that say, look, hit 2 reps in reserve more or less every week, you're totally fine. Some folks say you got to go hard every single week, and every single week is maximum hard, and don't worry about ramping it in. I say ramping it is a real good idea, and I have both good scientific and logical reasons, and also a completely absurd analogy for you at the very end. So stay tuned, or just fast forward right now to the very end and have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. Anyway, here we go. How hard should you start your mesocycle? You put a new program together. It's week 1 of your program. You just deloaded. You could start at 0 RIR, like pretty close to failure or failure for everything, but that's going to come with a huge fatigue cost, higher probability of injury going from 0 to 60 super fast. And the best thing is you don't really need that level of effort to occur because you just deloaded and spent a week not training hard, so you're more sensitive to training. In addition to that, you probably moved some exercises around, introduced some new ones, got rid of some old ones, changed the rep ranges so that the novelty alone is going to be really stimulative, so you don't need to go to crazy failure all the time or in this first week. And so under these conditions, something like 3 reps in reserve is actually, perfect amount of training, perfect stimulus that gets you right in that zone, gets you a little pumped, a little sore, a little tired, and the next week you can go up and up and up. All right. Next question. Why, if RIR3 training is really good for week 1, why is it not good to just do in week 2 and 3 and 4? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, that sort of thing. Well, hold on a second. So why should you scale up? Couple reasons. One, you want to make sure you're not sandbagging your training. So making your training a little bit challenging over time until you hit an absolute limit into how hard you can push ensures that you're within that 0 to 3 RIR band. Because if you start at 3 RIR and you tell yourself you're 3 RIR, you could be here and actually at 4 or 5 reps in reserve, and that ends up not being very effective, especially for intermediates and advanced. So you want to make sure you're not sandbagging your training, and regularly challenging yourself a little bit more is basically a guarantee that that doesn't happen, at least not for long. So what you do is you increase your repetitions per set and or your load a little bit week by week by week. And that means you're pushing the pace so that you're not in a situation where like, oh, am I really training harder over time? Am I really getting better? Well, yeah, like you literally are. So that question is answered. What happens is as you go a little harder each time and as your fatigue accumulates, you end up having to drop how close to failure you're getting, or rather increase how close to failure you're getting, and your RIR start to drop. You start at 3 reps in reserve, then you add 5 or 10 pounds, you add a rep, the fatigue is higher. Next week, maybe, some neurological adaptations, your technique is better, so it's still 3 in reserve. Then the next week is 2 reps in reserve, then 1, then 0, and then you're basically going to failure, right? It has to happen this way unless you plan on getting stronger forever and never actually reaching your limits. That would be sweet. But if you tell yourself every week, I'm going to put a little bit of load on the bar or add a set here and there, eventually you get to 0 RIR and failure. It just has to occur that way. But this is really good because we want more challenge as our bodies adapt to previous challenge in the previous week. It's just not ideal to repeat the same exposure. Think about getting good at anything. Like if you have some kind of like French language app and you're like, oh yeah, les incompetents. Yeah, see, that's the only French I know. And you're like, oh, I said a phrase or a word in French. I'll just do that again next week. And then a few weeks later, I'll be able to speak French. I got to hear it. That's not how it works. You learn some words, you learn some phrases, you learn some conjugation, you do more complexity. It's more challenging kind of regularly until eventually you can speak French like me, a person who studied in France for years during the war to be a professional chef. You guys know all this already. I don't have to bore you with my history. You want to go a little bit further into the fray with each successive week because that's how you make the best gains. Plain and simple. So you can't just keep that first week effort. You got to increase effort over time. Lastly, Why is it, at least in many cases, a good idea in that last week or the last half of the last week before you deload to really just go for broke with good technique, blow it out, and on the exercises which are not going to kill you, like a machine chest press, go all the way to failure? Why could that be, at least theoretically, a pretty good idea? A couple reasons. First, that last week before, right, the second to last week was maybe 1 or 0 reps in reserve. This next week, just with the addition of 5 more pounds or a rep to every set, it's going to be basically failure anyway. So it's not like you're doing anything super different. You're just finishing what you started. First point. Second point, there are theoretical reasons, hypothetical reasons that you can get some gains by really pushing hard all the way to your limits on occasions. And it's not the kind of gains that you would get just from doing great training. It's a level beyond. And is it possible that that's the case? Yes. Is it likely? I don't know, but I wouldn't rule that out. And if there's not a huge amount of downsides to really pushing it every now and again at the end of every mesocycle, I think it's probably worth at least trying or at least thinking about. Another reason, you want to test your max rep abilities to make sure you're gaining strength for reps over last time. Let's say you worked up to 200 pounds in the squat for reps last mesocycle, 6 weeks ago, and you got a set of 12 as your top set, and your average, over 4 sets was 10 reps. You're coming back up again with squats as the first exercise, and you're at 205 or 210 pounds this time. You want to see if you can do better than 12 or at least match 12 so that you gain 5 or 10 pounds of strength. You want to really push the pace so that you don't have to be like, well, I think I got stronger, but like last time it was 1 RIR, this time it was like 2. So you try to do that in your head. Just that mathematics is all nonsense. It's just a whole lot of pretend. The only real good way to compare performance to performance is if both of them were pushed to the limits. Then you can say that's equated. My effort was maximum the whole time. If I did better now than back, 6 weeks ago, clearly I got better and I'm doing something right. Now, if you didn't get better, that's something for you to think about. There is the puzzle piece of like, okay, is my nutrition lacking? Is my sleep lacking? Is my programming bad? Are just my genetics like the worst ever? Should I just quit? Should I take up tennis? Those are all really good questions you want to ask if you're not improving. So this ability to go all out to get a good metric cycle to cycle to see if you're improving, that's a pretty compelling thing. Another one is you are theoretically going from like 3 reps in reserve through the mesocycle all the way to 0 reps in reserve or pretty close to failure. How do you know that's the case in reality if you never push it? Like if you finish your last week of training and you're like, yeah, that's a PR. And it is, right? You got stronger, better than last week, better than 2 months ago. You rack the weight. That could have been 3 RIR. And you've been telling yourself you're training at an average of 2 RIR the whole time. That's wrong. And you started at what you thought was 3 RIR, 6 weeks ago, but it was really 6 RIR because you've just been sandbagging. You want to push on occasion very close to, if not to, true failure itself, just to test yourself. You say, okay, I think because I did 11 reps last week at 300 pounds in the leg press, this week at 310, I should be able to get 12 reps, and that's going to be failure. If you get to 12 and you do the 12th rep and you're like, that's easy as fuck, I'm going to do 3 more reps, then you know you got a lot better, first. Second, you've been bullshitting yourself on what your RIR was. On the other hand, if you did 12 reps this time and 11 last time, and it took everything you had and your buddy had to like stay next to the machine to make sure you didn't kill yourself, that last rep was like 50 trillion, extra seconds of super slow contraction, you can be pretty sure you're pushing into failure in that last week. And thus, if you discount all the weights and reps before 3 weeks back, you're like, yeah, I really did start at 3 RIR. I'm training completely on track. That's a really good thing. It sets you into line to make sure you're actually trying as hard as, number one, you think, and number two, the research suggests is best, which, is anywhere between 3 and 0 reps in reserve. Another compelling reason why, not that you should do this, but that it's okay, is that you have a deload week after. Like you kind of have the whole fucking week to recover anyway. So it's not like someone could be like, hey man, don't go to failure today, bro. You're like, it's week 5, week 6, I deload. This is the Thursday of week 5. I have one more training day tomorrow. Why shouldn't I give it my all on these leg presses? Like, you're going to need it for next week, brother. And you're like, need what? Dumb motherfucker. I'm deloading. He's like, champions don't deload. You're like, yeah, get the fuck out of my face. You don't know what you're talking about. So you got to deload next week. It's okay to go all out. No big deal, right? It's like if you Oh, this is a terrible analogy. If you go to Las Vegas, is it okay to get super fucked up the night before you fly back out to, let's say, Europe? Well, yeah, you're on a 12-hour plane ride. What could go wrong? Having a hangover. That was a terrible analogy. Don't do that. And if you do that, make sure to at least throw up into the person's next to you lap. And if they get upset, you're like, Vegas, baby. Guess whatever happens in Vegas doesn't really stay in Vegas, especially if it's your vomit. In any case, this means that it's maybe a good idea to do your last half week kind of all out. And at the very least, the second half of your last week. Because let's say you have a leg workout on Tuesday and then Friday of that last week. If you all out Tuesday and you're pretty jacked and pretty strong, Friday may just not happen the way you planned. Too sore, too beat up. You just fail all your PRs, everything goes to hell. So maybe that second to last leg day, that last week first part, you go just to 0 RIR, 5 or 10 pounds heavier than last time, same reps, whatever's prescribed. And then that last workout, Friday, you really, listen to Limp Bizkit on the way to the gym, turn your baseball hat around before you do your set, sunglasses for the radiation that you're emitting, shit like that. Really, really get it fired up. So some compelling reasons there. The unifying theme here is that when you start your training mesocycle, your program, you want to just get the easy gains going and get that momentum going, right? You don't just like run through a brick wall your first fucking session of the month. That's kind of stupid. You're going to get great results, trying not so hard, and then you increase difficulty over time via autoregulation. That means if your leg presses are really coming up, then you can put 20 pounds for some weeks on the leg press more than the weeks before. If it's tricep extensions, maybe 2.5 or 5 pounds, but a little bit more, maybe a rep here and there, a little bit more every single week, just a bit to keep going up and up and up. And then in that last week or last half of the week, you can really just fucking pour all of your childhood demons out and just do what it takes to go all out. As long as you're safe and your technique is good, just leave it all out there in the gym, potentially blood, sweat, and vomit as well, chunks of your hair on the bar. I don't know what kind of technique you're doing there. But that's probably okay too and may even be an advantage. So the unifying theme is you start a little easy, progressively work your way up, and end on a really high note. And what does that sound like? Sex. That's right. That's right. So let me make an analogy for you as to how sex is so much more like lifting than we all thought. Or some of us knew already that lifting was exactly like sex. Here we go. Let's see if we can get the band hammer on YouTube for this one. Isn't that right, Scott, the video guy?
We're on our way.
Well on our way. Yeah. All right. So here's the analogy. You're in the club, clearly. You're a man of taste. Girl comes up to you at the club. You're in a dark corner, just grooving by yourself. She just reaches for your fucking dick and just grabs the shit and looks at you. I mean, that's kind of cool and all, but like a part of you's like, damn, bitch, slow the fuck down. Holy shit. You're like, let's maybe chat for a little bit. Even, okay, that's too prude. Let's make out and do touchy-touchy. That shit is fun as hell. And it gets everything going. And you find out if it's the right groove. And, oh, that part's so fun, right? So, damn, hold up. You know what I'm saying? Grab my dick, slap fucking hand. Get the fuck out of here. What was your name anyway? In any case, such a thing is too much too soon. I know, crazy it may seem. That is the reality. Next, probably not at the club, though maybe if you have bottle service, you can get away with this. You're, let's say, back at your place or her place where there's like chains and shit and pictures of guys with targets on their faces and little darts on there, and some of the darts have fallen off. And what the fuck is going on? So anyway, you're there and you're getting the beej, right? The old beej. Google that if you have to. And let's say she's like fucking hitting you up and she's going like a great pace for foreplay, but like there's a difference between like, hey, this is fun and like your boy's never going to nut at this pace. Similar idea here to adding load and reps over the weeks is like RIR3 is really cool to begin with, just like a nice slow beach or some making out's cool to begin with. But if we all want to try to get to the end of this thing, which means nutting, there's going to have to be some progression. So better idea is to kind of ramp it up slowly and for an eye at what the intensity increases are doing to the receiver of said beej. So for example, if she's like, fine, you want it hard and like the crazy mouth shit, psycho eyes and her eyes roll in the back of her head. And remember, Satanist girls are the best. You're like, holy shit, that's too much. That's just to play this fine line of going a little harder, seeing how you're feeling and going up and escalating and so on from there. All right, same ideas in training. There is no avoiding hard training if you want to grow. But if you want to grow the most, your training needs to be hard and smart. RP Hypertrophy app will make sure you're progressing on track, monitoring and adjusting your workout at all times. So for all that work you're doing, you can be sure you're getting the best results. Towards the end, if you're like, basically you start nutting, and as soon as you start nutting, she removes said penis from said mouth and just looks at you with like dead eyes. You're like, she's like, was that fun? Did I make you happy? And you're like, man, why did you stop at the end? Damn it. And stopping at the end is kind of similar to getting to that last week of training and just not fucking going at it. You got to finish on a fucking high note, right? You can't just leave and say, oh, meh. You're just going to mail it in. So mailing in your training is like, you know, the girl you're hooking up with mailing in the end of blowjobs. That's no good for anyone. That's terrible. What a ripoff. I want a refund. In any case, I got another similarity that still relates to sex. The hell is wrong with me? We'll get to that very shortly. In training, even if it's that last week, some exercises have a super high stimulus to fatigue ratio. Let's say you're doing hack squats. It just feels like money. Your knees feel incredible. Your quads are blowing up. Load additions have been done every single week. You went from 300 pounds to 310, 320, 330, but your RIR isn't reducing. Like you're getting such crazy neural adaptations and such insane hypertrophy because that exercise is so amazing for you that like it's just about as hard every single time. Like you started at 3 RIR and it still kind of feels like 3 RIR, even though you've put 40 pounds of weight over the course of 5 weeks onto the fucking shit. Your pumps are unbelievable. You get so sore from this hack squat that you barely heal on time for the next time it's time to train legs. The question is, if you do blow it out in the last week and just go for broke, exactly how do you plan to improve that? You're getting ideal training. And when the going is good, there is a thought that just don't fuck with it. Just leave it alone. Just add another 10 pounds that last week, just like you did the week before, or add a rep to each set and a set to the exercise, whatever you do, normal additions. No need to add 30 pounds and 3 reps just because you can. Chance of injury there goes up. And also, even if it doesn't go up, what is it that you want more than incredible training that's right on the money? Don't spoil perfect. So if you have an exercise that's going super well and you just add another 10 pounds and do 18 reps because you started at 14 4 weeks ago and now you're up 40 pounds and 4 reps, you don't have to go, I get to 23 and my tricep and fuck, I should have never done that. Just if it's perfect and you don't need to put the cherry on top, just don't do it. Ride it out, right? Similar in the sex department there is if you're getting the perfect beej. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, if she's doing that shit and you just want to have like a psychic moment because you can barely speak anymore and you're like, just don't change anything. You just keep doing exactly what mythical, weird, Satanist chick shit that you're doing and I'm going to be there. You don't need to change a thing. Your boy's already, like, there's the orgasm threshold. I'm right here and it's going. It's going to happen, right? Change nothing. Because the alternative is she's like, she notices you're close to nutting and she's like, oh shit, I gotta really fucking go at it. You're like, fucking goddamn it, you ruined it. Then you gotta, play chess with each other for an hour so that your natural juices start flowing again. Intellectual conversation is nice. Maybe go out to eat. I'm kidding. That night is fucking over. Call yourself an Uber. All right. That's the analogy. What a terrible, terrible episode. Why? A few questions. Let's do a few questions. First, Why not use a female stimulation example? Dr. Mike, why did you use like a female giving a male a blowjob? Why not like cunnilingus? A few answers. First, because my cunnilingus advice is extensive and scientific and meticulous and well-developed and not free. Gotta go on my OnlyFans for that shit. JK, the real reason is that honestly, the patriarchy as a social institution prevents us from centering female pleasure. And it's just like not okay to do that. It's like not. Just kidding. I have never been with a woman. I wouldn't know what to do. And I have, in theory, pretended that I received blowjobs. So that's easier for me to talk about. And that's really it. Question number 2. What happens after the BJ? I mean, we do this whole stupid sex analogy. Why not finish it up? Here, let me guide you through this. You close your eyes right after you nut and you're like, oh, that was the best. And then you hear from upstairs your grandma going, Billy, did you say something down there? And then you open your eyes. It's just you, your dick in your hand, paper towel, stained now, computer screen. Again, you were never with anyone. And maybe you'll never be, just like me. Was that weird? Yes. But I'm here for it all day. And if you want more of this type of shit, subscribe, notifications, turn them shits on. I guess that's what people do. We have a membership thing, which is much less, possibly zero sex talk and much more scientific nerd shit about how to actually get jacked. And also, if you look at the links in the description, we have a whole company that sells you stuff that helps you get more jacked, more lean, and geez, dare I say even happier. But on the sexual front, we got nothing for you. That's all you. And clearly I'm no help. So I'll see you next time.